Officer, I'm only had one.
Drunk driving is bad, but our next caller was actually sober when he was arrested. Stay tuned.
Homer Simpson, that is a fake name, but you're a real person. You're saying you got a DUI and you were sober and you want to talk about your legal options. Is that right?
100%.
Okay. Well, let's start off. You're driving. How sober were you? Like sober or like soberish?
I think I had like 2 beers and a shot, maybe 2 over 6.5 hours.
Okay. And how much do you weigh?
About at the time I was about 275.
Oh, that's nothing.
Yeah, sometimes we get callers and or relatives of mine, uncles that live in a certain city, that will always say, I haven't had anything. And then they're like 19 shots later and they weigh like $125 soaking wet.
Yeah.
So, okay, we're off to a good start here. So,
yeah, 2 drinks in 6 hours when you're 270. That's 0 drinks if you do the math.
yeah, not a math Asian, but maybe Vince is. So, all right. So tell us a little bit more about the circumstance. How did this occur?
So I actually had swerved while they had somebody else pulled over. You know, random chick sent me a titty pic, opened it up on Snap. It happens.
You were
Pulled
just
over, nothing
pretending
was
to be
wrong.
drunk.
Go ahead.
You were merely pretending to be drunk.
Apparently, I was acting. I should have gotten an Academy Award for it.
Okay.
But yeah, so they pulled me over and, started questioning me. Was honest, told them I had, 2 beers and a couple shots over, 6.5 hours?
Yeah.
And he said he smelled alcohol in the car.
Okay. Why did he smell alcohol?
My drunk friend that had sent me the picture, I had dropped off at her house. And she was in the backseat playing with a cooler and had decided to open a bottle of Crown and spill it all over into the cooler.
Okay, that makes sense. So he pulls you over. You reek of alcohol. You've got a drunk girl in the back rolling around.
No, she's gone. He dropped her off.
She's gone. I dropped her off. That's how I got titty pics.
So you don't even have an alibi. You just have the story of a drunk girl in the back. And so he decides to ask you to step out of the vehicle?
It wasn't so much an ask. It was if you don't step out of the vehicle, we're going to drag you out, was what was said.
Oh, okay. Direct. I like that. Forceful.
What state was this in?
Yeah, great question.
It was in Texas.
So they politely ask you to get out of the vehicle, and you then what happens?
I kind of gave him some crap about getting out of the vehicle because I felt safer in the vehicle and I knew where this was going.
Yeah.
That's when they told me they were going to drag me out, and I just broke in my arm and had it reset.
Oh.
So it ended up getting out. They said, we're going to give you a field sobriety, and my cousin's an attorney actually and told me just decline that, tell him you got a bad knee and that you're not willing to take that, and you'll go ahead and take a breathalyzer, and we'll see where you're at on that.
And you felt confident enough to do the breathalyzer?
I was good enough to do a breathalyzer. I would still say I would do one today.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I'm not a math Asian. Neither is Bill. But at 270 pounds with 2 drinks over 6 hours, there's almost no way that you could be at 0.08.
Yeah. Unless those drinks were both bottles of Everclear, it's going to be pretty difficult.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I do drink Rumple for fun, so you never know.
Okay.
Well, then I think you deserved everything you got. No, I'm kidding. Okay. So let's go back to you end up you're saying I don't want to get out of the car, and then what?
I say that. They said, well, we're no longer asking. It's an order. If you don't get out of the vehicle, we're going to drag you out. At which point in time, I exited my vehicle and went to the front of their police vehicle that was parked directly behind mine. They asked to do a field sobriety test. I declined. And they said, turn around, you're under arrest.
Oh, for declining.
Yep.
They didn't,
right then and there.
And they didn't have a breathalyzer?
That city, from what the officer told me, that city does not do breath tests. They only do blood.
Okay. So
which I've never heard of in my life.
Broken arm, you don't feel healthy to do the field test, and there's a lot of arms in that. I've given it a few times.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you deny that, and they just arrest you straight there. They don't test you back at the station?
So that's the thing. Once I willingly gave my blood. Once I was then booked into the station, the irony was I had to blow when I left after the judge gave me my bail amount and I was all set. I was told to blow at that point in time, and I blew straight zeros across the board.
Hold on. Let me make sure I understand the timeline. You get pulled over. They make you get out of the car under threat of violence. You can't do the field sobriety, so you decline. They arrest you. They take you to the station on the basis that they only do blood tests. They then take you. You give the blood voluntarily. You bail yourself out, and then magically the breathalyzer dong appears, and you have to blow into it.
Yep, they would not let me leave the jail until I was under a certain limit, and I laughed. I was like, okay, here comes straight zeros, and every officer there started laughing.
Honestly, from what I'm hearing right now, it sounds like they pulled you over. They thought they had one. They got aggressive with you. You got a little mouthy with them because you knew you were sober and you knew your rights, and they just railroaded them.
So what happened? So now we've got the blood test is in, no results yet, of course, because you're at the station.
By the way,
then you have a 0.
I pulled up a calculator. If you're 270 pounds and in 6 hours you only had 2 drinks, your blood alcohol level is 0. It's like 0.00018.
Wow,
not even close.
Yeah, we did the math. One of my best friends is actually a sheriff in another state, and he did the math. He's like, knowing what you could actually drink, you would have had to have about 6 shots and a few beers to be even close to that in that amount of time.
Now, we are not telling you to do that at home. If you're listening, don't drink and drive.
Put it down. Okay, so the blood is in. You've blown zeros on the only test that has a result. They let you go, of course, because you've bailed yourself out. Now what?
So I get out. I grab an Uber to get home from the jail. Immediately start calling attorneys because got to be safe on that one.
Right.
I work in a field that, if that showed up, I'd be in a lot of trouble. So this happened all last June. We are now, halfway through March?
Mm-hmm.
My blood results still aren't in from the state.
And
No
you have a
charges filed,
DUI on
no
your
nothing.
you have a DUI on your record. You've been charged with a DUI.
I have not been charged with anything. I only have the arrest.
You don't have an arrest record?
No. He's got an arrest record because he was arrested. He has not been charged, which means they have not taken the case to a grand jury because they know the only evidence they have in their hands, assuming they haven't actually gotten the blood results back, which is a question mark. They may have gotten it back, and now it's sitting on someone's inbox on their desk waiting for someone to get done with their donuts so that you can go on with your life. But they have one piece of conclusive evidence, which is the breathalyzer that blew zeros. And so now they're sitting on it. This is the limbo period that people find themselves in when aggressive law enforcement moves, but then they know they can't take it to the next level. The county prosecutor, the district attorney, because you show up with this kind of evidence, you will get laughed out of the district attorney's office.
And prosecutors like to win. They have a really high win rate.
What do you think, Vince? You met any prosecutors that love to lose?
No, absolutely. I would definitely. I think this case will get thrown out, honestly. Or you could fight it, because there's no evidence. Dude, I'll tell you guys my situation.
Yeah.
So this is about 12 years ago. I first moved to California from Jersey. So I had no idea. I'm used to taking a bus or train or taxi. I was coming home from a gig. I had a couple of drinks, and I saw lights. I didn't know what a DUI checkpoint was.
Oh,
All
no.
I'm seeing is trailers and lights. So I thought it was like a movie set. So I drove right into it. And I said, hey, you guys looking for extras?
Oh, no. Did you really?
Yeah. And the guy was like, have you been drinking, sir? I said, a few beers. So I decided to do the breathalyzer, and I got a .07. So technically I was...
So you got it. You skated.
No, they arrested me anyway.
What was it?
It was
0.08
like,
in
I think in
Texas?
California it's .08, but I was close enough. So they
rounded up?
Yeah, they rounded up. And I ended up I know, this is so traumatizing. You guys are giving me flashbacks. I had to spend a weekend in jail, and I didn't know how long I was going to be in there. I mean, people were like freaking, I thought I had to join a gang because they were like in there were people getting mail. And I was like, how long am I going to be in there? When you're in a drunk tank or in jail for a weekend, you have no concept of time. But anyway, I didn't join the gang. I didn't eat anything that weekend because they were serving bologna sandwiches. And I knew if I ate, I would have to use the bathroom. And I didn't want to take a dump in front of all these criminals.
Look, I think the most important part is you can take a dump, but you just don't want to drop your drawers.
Yeah, that's what it is. I didn't want to tease anybody.
So here's what's interesting. I'm going to make 2 comments based on your story, Vince, and also our caller, Homer. Guys, every criminal defense attorney is going to tell you this. Don't answer the questions. When they ask you, have you had anything to drink, you just say, what can I help you with? You don't have to answer the question. Is it going to piss them off? Absolutely. It is definitely going to piss them off. But there's nothing good that comes of it. Because as soon as you say you've had anything to drink, it's going to immediately turn it into a heightened situation. And here's the thing. For people, for our police officers and law enforcement or friends of law enforcement who are listening who go, oh, we're just doing the job. It is correct. You are just doing your job. And the adversarial system says that there are questions you have to answer and questions you don't have to answer.
Drinking and driving is a real issue.
It's a serious
a real
problem,
issue.
of course.
Like drivers are bad enough in Dallas. I don't need them also drunk. And if you go out on Highway 75 or 635 at like 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. on a Friday, it's literally Mad Max out there. Like, it's wild. It's like people are driving 100, 110, swerving. It's a nightmare.
Absolutely. I don't advocate for drinking and driving. I was a younger comic then. You know, I had no idea what the laws are in California. So I was just excited to be there in this new state, new city.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, man, I'm going to take on Hollywood. And I had no idea they were really strict. And I suggest, man, you know, I was a lot cuter then, too. It was just scary.
You feel like we didn't believe your rape story earlier. So you're like, no, guys, no, look, I was very cute.
Yeah, you don't want to be a cute young comic in jail and not having to worry about having to use the toilet because there's like 15 of them.
Yeah.
15 of us in one cell. And there's one toilet.
Yeah.
It's like, bro, I'm not going to eat that free bologna sandwich.
There's a lot of material there you've passed on, but probably for the sake of your ability to sit down straight, it was a good idea to pass on that. But let me address the legal side real quick.
Okay.
So
That's the point of the show.
we were talking about the limbo side here, Homer, and I know what you're frustrated about because I've talked to folks who've been in a situation where they have been arrested, they've been, by law enforcement accused of a crime, but they haven't even been charged by the government, much less the case being brought or moved forward or anything like that. So you can actually mount the defense. You're in this limbo period. But fortunately, the term that everyone knows, even if you don't know much about the law, statute of limitations comes into play. So in Texas, where you're based, there's two main types of DUIs. There's a misdemeanor DUI and a felony DUI. Here, yours is most likely, if they were going to charge you, would be a misdemeanor. Why? Because you don't have prior convictions, I assume. Do you have any prior convictions for DUI, DWI?
No, it's a misdemeanor charge with an open container, which gets better. I'll fill you guys in on that.
Okay, so that's a 2-year statute of limitation. They have 2 years from the date of the offense to bring the charges. Now, there's a little bit of exceptions for tolling, but that's generally what the issue is. And this is where people get so frustrated because the government has so much power to be able to arrest you, even if you haven't done anything wrong, because of some overzealousness or the way the laws are written or that kind of thing. They may just actually be doing their job, but now you have to live under this circumstance and just wait to see what's going to happen. And so that's a big problem. But the 2 years is that window that they're going to have to be able to come charge you. And it, even if it's the last day, they might do it on the last day if someone's real crazy. But frankly, that person would have to have not even been looking at the evidence to decide that they were going to bring it. But what's your other point about the open container?
So the item that was found allegedly in my front seat was wrapped in a shirt that I know was in my trunk. And they went through and searched my entire vehicle. I'm not talking like an inventory. These guys were opening my hat cases, going through my golf bag, everything.
You don't keep booze in your golf bag? What kind of golfer are you?
I mean, do you golf sober? That's no fun.
That's true. You need to get rid of it. That's a good point.
Can they do that in Texas without a warrant? Can they just search your vehicle?
Shouldn't be able to get in the
They've
trunk.
got to have probable cause to be able to go through. And part of the issue is going to be that the smell of alcohol in most jurisdictions is going to give you the ability to start looking. Now, there is a difference between whether you can look in the trunk or the frunk or, kind of dive into all the other parts. But let's dig into that for a second. You're saying that they pulled a shirt from the trunk and then said it was in the front seat and had alcohol in it?
Yep, there was a can that I know was in the cooler because I didn't have any empties anywhere else. The shirt was next to my golf bag. And when I got to my car the next morning and I found out that I had the open container, I thought they were talking about the bottle in the back seat. The only open container that would have been within reach was in my front seat on the floorboard now wrapped in a shirt.
Would that still be an open container if it's just wrapped in a shirt?
That's interesting.
I don't know. We're not. Here's the thing. We're not DUI experts. See, that was the whole point. That was the whole.
From my experience, I took it to court. I got my public defender because I know 0.07 will probably. I don't know what would happen. I know I didn't want that on my record. I didn't want my life ruined, so I took it to court. It took about 2 years for me to get the case cleared. At the end of the day, I just got hit with a reckless driving charge.
Yeah.
And it was a misdemeanor, and I had to do 120 hours of community service, AA classes, and it was great. On the bright side, I was able to meet a lot of good people in my AA classes, and they came out to my comedy shows. I don't know if you're a comic, but it's a good way to network. And my community service, I did in the Goodwill. So I did about 4 hours a week. It took me about 3 years to finish my community service.
Wow.
But I learned a lot working at the Goodwill for free.
Yeah, and that's good life experience, and you paid your debt to society for being a .07. But I'm still interested. Have you, caller Homer Simpson, have you hired a lawyer yet? Do you have a public defender? Like, what's going on with that?
So I have an attorney that I've already engaged. They're taking the case. They've been paid. We're handling all that on that end. I just wasn't going to risk it. I work in a profession that could ruin my career.
For sure. Now, Bill, this is one that we might have to look at later. If he wins and was proven innocent on this, and it's like trumped up charges, can he get his attorney fees back? There's no mechanism. Is there a mechanism for him to do that?
So there are civil rights and kind of abuse of power type statutes that are available, not only in Texas, other places like that. More likely, the fastest and easiest way to be able to do that, and this is without even getting into the merits. So just talking hypothetically, there are kind of internal affairs and other kind of watchdog agencies within the government that would be able to quickly investigate and figure it out. The biggest issue you're going to have here is, and I was thinking about this as you were describing it, is okay, the can's wrapped in a shirt. Let's say the officers were smart enough that when they put the can in the shirt, they used the shirt to wipe off their own prints and then put it in the front of the car. If they had body cams and the body cams were on, it might see them doing that. However, most officers, despite what we see online, is a smattering of lawyers or officers who do stupid things while the camera's on. I bet these guys didn't have their camera on. So now they've moved it over, and there's no evidence to be able to connect that it's there. It's going to be your word versus their word about how the can got there. Now, you might be able to say, well, look, my fingerprints aren't even on the can.
Wow.
But then they're going to argue, yeah, you wrapped it in the shirt as soon as we pulled up, and you threw it on the ground hoping we wouldn't see it, and that's where it is. But let's get down to the practical side about what they're going to do with this claim. Right? It's a Class C misdemeanor. It's a $500 fine to have an open container. Texas has an interesting statute on open containers. Any alcohol container, if it has broken seal and it's in reach of the driver, so not just an exclusive passenger part, is considered an open container.
What if it's empty?
Even if it's empty.
What if I drink it real fast?
This is exactly why they had to make the statute that way. Some asshole was like, they can't give me if I just drink the whole thing. Right? There was no alcohol in it, right? But even a microscopic amount, and we all know, we've all tried to get that very, 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 very last drop out of any container. You really can't, right? Now, whether they preserve that evidence in the right way, though, is going to be another big question, because you're going to say, well, look, that wasn't there. They put it there. They're going to say, look, it was in the front. I got to tell you, if that was the only facts you had to go on, 9 out of 10 juries are going to say, dude, it was you, right? You admitted that you had it in the car, et cetera, et cetera. They're going to say that's where it is, and they're probably going to believe law enforcement. But here's the most important part is, these are guys who pulled over a sober guy and arrested him. They've already done so many things that are wrong. I think the real betting odds on this is that they didn't do the right type of preservation they needed to do with that bottle. So, for example, if they took the actual open container, they would need to test it to see, does it actually have anything in it? Because, for example, I'll give you a little example. My dad was in college in the late 70s, and they had a certain type of beer cans back then that looked really weird to me now, but there's just a little smaller can with a pull tab on the top, and they made a special run of these at the college he went to, and I found some on Etsy. So I bought it for him. It was real nostalgic, put it in a little glass case, whatever. Technically, that would have been an open container, except for the fact that it's been bone dry for 40 years, right? So you can transport alcoholic containers, even containers that used to have alcohol in them, but it's that amount, right? That's that line where the law is trying to say, we're trying to catch people who decided to chug the Smirnoff Ice when they got pulled over versus the guy who has a bunch of empties. Technically, you're taking a bag full from a barbecue that's got a bunch of
a homeless guy
Bud
with
Lights
2
in
trash
it.
bags to recycle. It's just open carrying.
Exactly, and that's a problem. That's why, kind of like with firearms and other things that the mere possession of within your reach as a driver could be a problem in certain states. They say put it in the trunk, put it in the front, put it away from where you can get to it. So I think the reality of this case is that maybe the results are such that they've got them and they're sitting on them. It's possible that the state is behind. Texas is not known for its really, really robust testing of anything. And so that could be a problem. And unfortunately, that's not really a great answer. Your attorney can do some reach outs, for example, to the district attorney to see what the answers are, whether they're going to formally drop the charges or whatnot. But the reality is an underpaid ADA who's being asked, hey, should I spend some time on this case that is definitely a loser? Probably going to be pretty hard unless they know someone there who's willing to take a little bit of the time to look at it. Even then, better for them to just kind of let it run out. But it's a really unfortunate situation. I dare say an abuse of power just throughout the circumstance, and I'm really bummed you had to go through it. And I'm sure we have callers and listeners who have dealt with this situation, some who deserve to be in jail, but not our guy Homer today.
I don't know how it is in Texas, but in California, even though it was
straighter.
It was in my record. it actually got dropped from my record after 10 years. So it was like, oh, cool, man, I can apply for jobs again.
Yeah.
So, but the sad thing was my license was suspended for 2 years, and I had to take the bus for 2 years. And dating is hard. You have to take the bus.
Yeah.
Because it's like, it's just.
Well, you meet new people, but not dateable ones.
Yeah. It's like, you tell a girl, hey, can we go on a date? But I got to take the bus to get there, and you got to follow a schedule. And it's just not cool, man.
You can only date people that live on the bus line.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're limited to your.
Plus, you're environmentally friendly. I like that. I like that.
Well, okay.
But you know what? Yeah. You have a lot of time to, like I said, you have a lot of time to reflect on your life choices and your decision. The best decision is you don't have to take the free drinks all the time.
Freedom isn't free.
Exactly.
You're paying somewhere. So let me give you one last thing, Homer, because I'm sure you're thinking about this. You mentioned that your career is something where, having much, conviction obviously would be a big problem. A charge is still bad. Arrest is bad. Texas has a pretty clear expungement program. The statute that relates to that for arrests is very clear. Once, assuming you haven't been convicted, which doesn't sound like it's going to happen here, and it shouldn't happen here, once the statute of limitations runs after that 2 years, you can file to get the arrest expunged from your record. So technically, the arrest records are all public, open records. We live in a quote-unquote civil society where you should be able to know that. And so later, you're going to want to consider that after your 2 years from the date of the arrest occur. So that you can go ahead and get that cleared up, just in case you move jobs or somebody does a background check on you later, that's going to be off. But that's an important part not to forget. You don't want to let it pop up. One of our earliest calls had a grandfather who had done a lot of alcohol and drugs in Baltimore in the early 90s.
It was a great call.
And it was 35 years later, it showed up for the first time on a very deep background check at a new employer. So rather than let that happen to you, definitely look at the expungement program. And we'll send you the statute and some of the information about how to do that when it comes time, and certainly talk to your attorney about it. If they're worth their salt, they'll know what to do at the right time.
Homer. Sorry. Homer, what do you do for work?
It's funny you guys mentioned searching for a job. I actually work in HR.
HR.
So, and I will tell you guys, as long as you're open and honest with whoever's hiring you, usually if you have an arrest that's not a felony crime, they're going to go ahead and leave you guys alone and let you go ahead and continue with the job, as long as it's not a felony charge.
Yeah, I don't trust HRs. I don't believe you. But caller, thank you so much. No, seriously. What happened to you was wrong. You were railroaded. We've done the math. You come off very believable. You weren't drunk. They're not prosecuting this. I'm sorry that you have to go through this. Do you feel like you were heard and your story got out there today?
Absolutely. It was nice to let some people hear the truth.
Yeah. Thank you for calling, and check in with us later if the situation changes, okay?
I think you're going to be fine, Homer.
Good luck, Homer.
Have a good one, guys.
Thank you.
I have a question, and this is not trying to brag or whatever, but how many times have you guys been asked to do field sobriety tests? Because I feel proud of my record.
I feel proud that I've been pulled over 4 times for suspected drunk driving, and was able to talk my way out of it prior to even having to do the field sobriety.
I have been given 4.
4?
And I have passed with flying colors, all 4.
They don't give you an award.
And I was mouthy, too. I was mouthy as I was doing it.
Not surprised.
Because I'm a lawyer and a comedian. I'm like, are we really doing this? Are we? Just pass it back.
What's your favorite part of the field sobriety test?
When I'm sober, the time I did it when I was completely sober, I was like, oh man, I could ace this. So I had fun with it, man. You want me to touch my nose? I can do this, man. I can hopscotch, whatever you need me to do. You
know, some of the worst ones I've seen, and it just doesn't happen that often, and I'm sure the officers feel terrible about it afterwards, is like people who have actual disabilities
Yeah.
or mental health issues or whatnot. And when I say mental health, I don't even mean like, kind of a schizophrenia type situation, but just like they have maybe a speech issue.
Come off as
right?
drunk.
And they come off as, and you're like, slurred speech. If I heard the average slurred speech person, I don't care if it's 8 a.m, I'm going to assume they were drinking, right? And so you see those, and you, because you already know what the result is, you know that this person like had a speech condition, or they're deaf, or whatever. Actually the deaf community is one of the worst, because even if they have the ability to speak, their partial speech is almost always construed by a low-paid small-town officer as being drunk. And here's the craziest part about all this: if you are an officer that has to go home every night and think to yourself, did I just let someone go that then is going to commit another crime?
Yeah.
Right? That's the hardest balance, right? And it sounded like we were real rough on law enforcement here because they deserved it. This guy, Homer, was sober, all right? But in some circumstances, it's a hard job to go.
Very hard.
Man, I'm gonna let Homer get back in, and then he plows into 2 people, right? And that happens more often than you think. It's a shitty situation.
It's a weird situation because you turn on the TV and you watch Super Bowl and it's Bud Light ads, and then and hard seltzer ads, and it's like there is a lot of alcohol at a lot of things, and we push it really heavy as a society, and then we just go, no, good luck on the roads. I don't know where my soapbox is going, but like it's wild that, like, for example, weed isn't legal in Texas, right? And it's like, could someone be more dangerous on the road driving with weed? Yeah, kind of, maybe, but they're probably just going to be in the slow lane, going like 15 miles per hour. Like that's a very, very cautious, right? You're going to find them in the Taco Bell parking lot. Man, this is hack. I'm glad this isn't my standard.
Dude, I got to tell you, I've got uncles who can drive better drunk than my mom can sober.
Yeah.
And I would say that's not an Asian joke, but it is.
DUI, driving under the uterus.
You know what? I forgot. I should have asked Homer.
What were you going to ask Homer?
If he knew who his biological dad was. Because maybe it's a genetic thing. Maybe his father was an alcoholic.
Maybe his dad was part Cherokee.
Yeah.
For real.
If you are the victim of overzealous police officers and you want to know your rights when it comes to a DUI, reach out to us, Hardly Legal. We can get you in contact with a local DUI expert in your area. Also, you can be a caller on the show. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We're going to be here for you when you need that cheap date.